So I think it's the time to go live, and I start with wishing everybody a happy New Year because these are first webinar during the new year, and definitely I would be taking you through the panelists and welcoming the delegates. Um, I'm pretty happy to be moderating this webinar today. I am Sujit Lahiri, and I am Executive Director of Skill Rock Technologies. And let me introduce the panelists first. So, Ashley, he is the founder of Crazy Billions. They offer big jackpots, games which you can play online. And Georgie, he is a very well-known iGaming consultant based out of Sofia, but he travels all across Europe, advising a lot of startups, existing established operating companies. And then we have Milda. She's the chief commercial officer of Super Lotto Games. They offer live games, they offer instant win games, they offer casino games, a lot of gaming contents. And Mario is CEO of UltraPlay. They are delivering very innovative betting products. So that's something that is about our panelists. And about my company, Skill Rock Technologies, we provide innovative platform and games to more than 28 countries across the world. And that's the brief introduction that we have about the panelists. And today our topic is exciting incidents in the gaming industry. So there, of course, we have split that into various different, subtopics. So I'll start with the synergy of instant games with other form of games, which are very popular in the iGaming industry. So my first, question that I'll pose to Mario. Mario, you have so much of sportsbook experience, and you come across players who are new, players who are very matured. So, how would a sportsbook player, see an instant game? Would they be seeing it as a side game, standalone game? What is that you expect of a very matured sportsbook player? What do you, Mary?
Well, in my opinion, cross sale is possible for sportsbook players, but I would say they're pretty very loyal to to what they're playing. Meaning that it would be very hard for him to just simply stop playing sportsbook and transit into lottery or an instant game. My opinion, the best way to serve this would be a more interesting approach where you either offer cross sale promotions that incentivize him to try it out, or a better presentation. Let's say a small instant game that is positioned right underneath the bet slip, that allows them to still do what they're doing in sportsbook and spend a few dollars to try out instant games, because sports betting is something very different. It involves passion, it involves fans, local teams, blah blah. There's real personalities playing, rather than instant games is just numbers. But as I said, it's very quick. You can win a lot, so I guess it has its spot. It just has to be presented and given in a way that doesn't require much attention or much knowledge about it.
Wonderful. So yeah, these are some of the ways that we can definitely create certain exciting options for players along with sportsbook. Milda, you had been working with a lot of casino games and electronic instants as well. Can you enlighten us in terms of how these games can interoperate, and why would casino player choose such games? Go to the website and place a bet. So, can you enlighten on this?
Actually, I agree with Mario and the many aspects he mentioned. The synergy between different sorts of games depends on a variety of circumstances, including jurisdiction, competition, and the operator's long-term goals. For example, in the past year, it has become more clear how operators can be divided. I mean that there are operators that want to bring everything under one umbrella, like a one-stop shop, and operators who want to focus on one area only, such as sports betting or casino games. Despite the fact that it is well known to everyone that bettors rarely play lottery games and the lottery players rarely play betting games, the pandemic situation has demonstrated that if game diversity is limited, it is harder to keep existing players or attract new ones. As a result, we can confidently say that diversity is an advantage. And in my latest experience, sportsbooks have recently showed an interest in instant games, and I've begun to understand why. Because instant games bridge the gap between traditional and physical lotteries, as well as having instants in the portfolio allows the operator to offer different kinds of content and attracted new players. And another area where I see a lot of overlap between sportsbooks and instants is when the operator offers branded instant games in partnership with sports people. So we have done projects like this before, and I can assure from personal experience that tailoring a game to a particular sport has been proven to be a successful match, a successful product, the final. So this is my opinion.
Yeah. So Milda, do you get a lot of data that data insight from the casino and other games that guide you in designing electronic instant win games?
Yeah. It is related very close to games, to ability to localize a game.
Wonderful. So continuing the game diversity topic further, Ashley, what does Crazyvillian do in terms of game diversity?
Okay, so if I talk a little bit, obviously specifically about the instance side of things, the kind of games that you build and offer vary according to the player's motivations. What a player is expecting. I'll come back to that a little bit. The games and the game mechanics that you would have within a game, so actually just what it is they're playing, what's the interesting part of it, and then very much around the kind of theme and visual aspects of games. I think Milda there initially talked a little bit about branded content and different markets. The theme from a diversity will be very much around hitting specific markets, an element of familiarity. It's important for our players to feel familiar with what they're playing with, but at the same time, always looking for something new and something different. One of the things that really strikes instance out as against more general entertainment of sports betting and casino is that naturally instant nature. We're talking about relatively a very small number of bets in each session with the customer. And so that ability to be fresh and new is very important. But at the same time, you've got to take the journey on a player on a journey where they're familiar. So to talk a little bit about diversity, I think it's key to maybe talk about the mechanics a little bit, because that will come into the discussion later on as well, is that instance is a huge almost possibility of mechanics within a game. But in order to help discussion, they'll go from a spectrum of match 3, scratch, see a result, get a win. very much at your disposable income for a one-off game that a player wants to play and then move on to the next bit. Aligned with what Mario was saying earlier there about perhaps playing one little bet underneath the bet slip in a sports book. And at the other end of the spectrum, you've got more, let's say, the crossword puzzles, or we've got color match games, etc., that offer several stages to a game, a lot more entertainment within each individual game. And that's a lot closer to the casino experience, where your players getting engaged for a longer time frame, possibly playing multiple games. And so as a provider of this content, it's important to offer this kind of variety and diversity within your portfolio, but at the same time, making sure that you present the games that are most sensible for that player. So when a player is at a bus stop looking to spend 2 minutes playing a game, then actually the very simple games are an awful lot more pertinent for that player than if they're sat at home for an hour, they've just been playing casino and they're thinking about moving on. The entertainment factor would be slightly different. Now, that's in an ideal world. Actually presenting the right games to the right players is quite difficult. And that's where, certainly as a supplier and as an operator, we need to understand that diversity and have an offering that can kind of cover all those different levels of the spectrum, if that makes sense.
Yeah, certainly, Ashley. That's quite insightful. Now, taking it over to Georgie, you have been advising a lot of startup operations, and right from the beginning, what role would game diversity play in a startup operation?
So probably, hello everyone, Happy New Year. Well, definitely more important role than having a large number of games, because having 2K or 3K slots will not get the job done for any project. Diversity is much more important especially for starting up operations. So my advice is generally try as much diversity as possible, experiment, try to promote different game like every week or even every day, and try to adapt to what customer responses are to these games. And in this perspective, definitely bet on instant games, because at this point, they are so much underrated and underestimated, especially promotion-wise. I mean, any operator would love to place them, but they're always seem to be at the back part of what's being displayed. And this is the real deal for success here will be a creative, fresh mix of stuff. Play some well-known providers with well-known games and do some instant games next to them in order to get the mix done and working. And instants are perfect for this. They're simple, they're easily accessible, and most of all, they're quick enough and easy to play.
Right.
So that's my general thought on this.
But you do also advise a lot of established operators. So is there any difference in the approach from a startup operations to an established operations in terms of game diversity?
Yeah, the main difference is that established operators can afford so much to experiment, and they have such a huge basis, such a huge database of customers. So, for example, a very simple advice these days is, with having enough of free spins out there. I mean, they're cool for customers, but come on, everybody's fed up with free spins. Just try to promote let's say, wager X amount on sports or wager X amounts in casino and gets 2 scratch cards for free. This is something fresh. This is something that's needed out there, and it's showing results. The only problem being that established operators are sometimes so slow in movement, and that is why oftentimes that get behind the starting up operators, which is good for the competition in overall and good for starting ups.
Perfect. Thanks. Now, the next topic that we take is in terms of localizing or regionalizing, the games. So, Milda, over to you. Can you throw us some light in terms of how do you customize specific to Europe or even Eastern Europe and going region by region and country by country?
I'd like to begin by firstly saying that it is crucial to understand specific needs and the local market standards, as well as have the ability to localize the game, especially in jurisdiction where this has a long-lasting tradition. For example, many might know Lithuania is a basketball-loving country, and so we took that and made several different games dedicated specifically to the sport by itself, and also some well-known basketball players. And this not only helped us create a new game, but also to use it as a cross-selling marketing tool. And by saying that, scratch card instant games have become not only a new addition by itself, but also it is a perfect tool for cross-selling and will attract another segment of players. So basically, the answer is the understanding the specific needs and ability to localize the game. I mean that what we did for Lithuania as a basketball country, it wouldn't work to another jurisdiction where the basketball is not so popular.
Wow. So, when you work with an operator, the operator has a lot of, database, that they can crunch. They can get some insight of what players like, what players don't like in terms of characters, in terms of colors, etc., etc. But at the same time, do you do any kind of market research, or do you, what is the combination between data insight and market research, which decides what kind of a game mechanic should be?
Actually, it is a very close work together with the operator. So provider and operator must to work very close to reach that result. No one knows best as the operator in this country.
Certainly. Now, Ashley, you have Crazy Billion attracting global players. They're from everywhere. Now, you must also be targeting regions with certain games. So, can you give us some example of how you target the European players, how different they are from the global players?
Yeah, sure. Fundamentally, it's just an extension to what Milda's adding there. Is that how you target is all based on putting familiarity in with a player. So if a player has a level of understanding innately already, by making them familiar with the scratch cards or instants, you've got a far better opportunity of success. And regionally, that familiarity changes quite a lot. I think Milda made a very good explanation around basketball and Latvia and Lithuania, etc. And the branding is obviously, you can easily see how that changes from different regions. It's also fair to say that the mechanics I was mentioning earlier will change quite a lot as well. So, a lot of that kind of Eastern European, we're used to several different games all embedded in the same card. From more of a Southern Europe, Portugal, Spain, a little bit more than about one game type in each individual card. So you tend to create different mechanics within there. I think, Sujit, you gave me another very good example in Poland the other day, where in Poland, they're very used to playing lots of different games within one card, but playing one game per day. That doesn't necessarily translate into some of the other areas. And hence, really, by understanding what's familiar to a Polish player and providing with those kind of cards works really well. If I wanted to use the same mechanics in, let's say, Italy, it wouldn't work as well. Let's do a bit of contrasting there. Another good one might just be around the bet size or the size or the value of the cards that people want to play on. generally speaking, as an Eastern European scratch cards, we find these are generally at a lower financial value. Players want to have several goes at a lower value than they do just want to put all their money into one big card. A good contrast with Italy, per se, where you'll find that a lot of players will actually have one bet, and they'll put their stake amount on that one bet. So you produce the cards with different stake values that choose different areas. The displays are very different. We lean a lot on what happens in the offline world. Our players are generally very understanding of instance from scratch cards in an offline world. So in a UK market with a very silver, gold, foiled scratch-off approach, we copy that largely online. If I move into the Latin American market, which are far more familiar with a little piece of card that you pull back as a pull tab, we'd create a slightly different mechanic online. It would just feel very differently. But in all those examples, what we're really doing is finding things that a player in that individual region is a little bit familiar with, so that when they come to play the instance online, it's not all totally new or different or can't really see what's going on type of thing. A very good example, we did some work in the US recently, was around on our matching and collection games. A fairly common mechanic is around actually finding things within a picture. Actually, it's a very heavily in-depth game. Requires a bit of thinking, requires a bit of time and effort. It's entertainment. From a US perspective, straight over the heads. So, our market research in America said just not the game type they want. Very much for them, it's about see and win and see and win. Gameplay time makes a bit of difference. Having said that, we're looking for familiarity, I might as well finish the comment with saying that, but we also try and stretch the boundaries as well. Whilst the customer is looking for familiarity, what keeps them entertained is also something a little bit different. So we do need to walk the line sometimes between just giving a player what he's seen before and also taking them on a journey for something that might be slightly different, that's a little bit more entertaining because they don't know what it is. And I think finding that balance is the secret to success, really.
Wonderful.
Is there examples I could go? Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Actually, one additional question on that could be, I'm sure you must be supporting, multi-currency, on your platform. And have you ever tried pricing, differently for the same game in different markets?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, it's a very important part of our product development. Is that idea of actually market research on the right pricing for the right games. Basically, each market will have its own kind of pricing expectations. Some of that is based on the economy, the people, their attitude to gambling, and some of it is also, very much linked into that offline world. One of the interesting, I suppose, things that we'll see is that players, by and large, when entering, here's a good example. Players, by and large, when entering a casino, will have a bank balance, and their expectation is that I've come for some entertainment, and I'll pay that back. I'll play that bank balance. In a scratch and an instant world perspective, particularly here where I'm talking about lottery or offline purchases, a player will be far more interested thinking, I'm going to have 3 or 5 goes at a game at a price level that I'm happy with. So the whole mechanic changes a little bit, and that whole what price level am I happy with is very important. Obviously, not everybody wants to play at the same price level, which plays back to the diversity we mentioned earlier. But at the same time, if players want to play at a €1 price level, and we're only offering cards at a €10 price level, we're not doing our customers any service. So yes, a variety is needed, but also needs to be quite tightly linked into the individual regional expectations.
Perfect. Of course, the next topic that probably interests every delegate is how to attract, young adults, Gen X, right? So, Georgie, my question is to you that you had been advising so many new companies, and of course, one specific strategy would be to attract new Gen players. How do you, what do you advise them? How do you go about?
Yeah, so much agree about the region peculiarities that Ashley was talking about, and it's definitely out there. But I would say there is something common for all around the world and for any generation, and this is the need for things to happen fast. There is an old general principle in web design and user experience which goes by the line, "Don't make me think." And nowadays, I believe it's valid to add to it, "Don't make me wait." Everybody, and especially online users, want things to happen fast. And this is certainly valid for Gen X, as you mentioned. The website of yours must load instantly, or your app. The game must load instantly. Same goes for deposit, same goes for withdrawals. So this is something that it might seem obvious, but it's often underestimated and often left behind, especially because of some kind of dependency from software providers or game providers. But it's definitely a top priority for any operator, no matter starting up or established, if they want to be competitive enough. So that would be my general advice.
Yeah. So, Georgie, what you're saying is that people, this Gen X has very little time, right? So they want everything fast, everything for sure. But, in terms of contents, do you think in terms of liking the game design itself, do you think there has to be some very specific choices taken, clues taken, for attracting Gen X?
Yeah, and actually going well with the topic of our conversation, instant games, as visible from their names, are just a perfect way to do this. Someone earlier mentioned playing while they're waiting for their bus on their mobile. So what can be better or more entertaining than just scratch a little card with your finger on the touch screen? I mean, this is just perfectly filling the gap between the well-known brick and mortar lotto type of tickets and the mobile online experience. So this is definitely something to be considered seriously when trying to attract this type of players.
Perfect. Ashley, we had been, talking about this, how do you attract the regional players? But what about Gen X or young adults, new gen players? What games would attract them? How do you exactly go about?
Yeah, I want to say it's tough because they come at two ends of the spectrum. I think Georgie just made a great point there about Gen X at the bus stop wanting to just scratch a little card. That's a very pertinent point about how it's looking for very immediacy in terms of what games we provide and how we work with them. And I think it's worth saying that, aside from just doing the very simple scratch cards that play quickly, you also add in a whole kind of mechanics to it as well. So, for instance, online, we don't have to wait for the whole scratching of a card before we can play the next one. Gen X, we need to make sure we give them that reveal all button so that they can just play, reveal, and it plays to that idea of everything in immediacy. However, at the other end of the spectrum, Gen X has grown up in a gaming world that, I hate to say it, is largely alien to me, and certainly I was too old at the time to enjoy it in the way that the Gen X do. And their expectations of an online experience is so much more richer than maybe those generations that have gone before them. And certainly when we think about entertainment and entertainment value and the massive budgets that go into the games on these things, there's a natural expectation from Gen X that they can somehow get more from a game. And if I ring that into, let's say, some of the more complex instance, so where we're maybe collecting a whole series things, we're taking a player on almost a little story within each game. Those are relevant to a Gen X player, but also they naturally take a little bit longer to play. And you can see how I've got this problem with Gen X is that Do we get it? Do we aim and concentrate that super quick, super fast? It's what they want. It's what they need at the bus stop. Or do we concentrate more at the end where they need a little bit of story and a little bit of life with it, with a very kind of complex game? And I think somewhere along the line, diversity, we need to be addressing both of them. Interestingly, on that more complex side of things, we did do a lot of research at one point in terms of how quick players need to play. And if they're looking for a heavy collection game, certainly the first few times they're looking to play, they're enjoying the journey. It's what happens here. If I press this, what happens there? But very quickly, your Gen X want that gameplay to consolidate down. And you'll find that in a lot of the instances that we offer now, they're a little bit more complex. There's a real need to offer shortcuts. So a player can kind of skip animations or can skip to a reveal or can go next. And we find that very quickly, the first game, which may have taken 10 seconds, by the time they've played a dozen or so, they're playing this game now at a 2-second speed and things are just whizzing around on the screen and making it happen. That's very much testament to what a Gen X player is looking for. Again, very hard to get right, but the more research we do, the more feedback we get, the closer we're going to be to getting that right.
So players mature with the game, right? So that's something to take. Milda, do you have while you're designing a game, what's the specific focus you have in terms of attracting young players? In terms of game mechanics, in terms of look and feel, how do you go about?
Actually,
a lot of it comes down to, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
The question was to Milda. Sorry. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, actually, I completely agree with Ashley because he mentioned probably all aspects that works for the young generation, as it is fast, reveal and play, reveal and play, reveal and play, and then they can skip the animation, but that must be done, and the result they must get the result immediately. That's a fact.
Perfect. Now, the next topic that we talk about is the convergence. The whole world has seen, what pandemic has done, and the omni-channel solution actually has come on the top because a lot of traditional physical channels, brick and mortar, has had serious issues. So we have true convergence of physical to digital world now. And Mario, you had been, largely focusing on digital, but at the same time, definitely some of your players have experience going to both, a land-based, shop and also playing online games. Now, coming to e-instants, definitely they have a legacy that they come from physical scratch cards, and then, things have been made digital. Once you make things digital, you have a lot of other choices. So how are you, attracting these players, offering, what's your view in terms of better offering to, in the digital world?
Good question. To be honest, really, I wouldn't say we have any experience in land-based. I don't think of it that we need to transform someone that uses, land-based coming in online. But I think, online has also been around for a very, very long time now. No, we've seen so many different things being on like prime priority for sportsbook throughout the years. Like, let's say first live betting. Who's gonna have it first? Then who's gonna have more matches and more sports? Then it was, let's say, cash out, who's going to have cash out, partial, not partial, better, then all kinds of like instant markets. And like, it's a constant battle to have, a better product, I guess. Maybe at some point it will reach its top. But for now, there's still new things coming up. So I'm guessing this is very important, for you. Let's say if you're entering a jurisdiction where there's already been some, whether a national or any form of betting that's already happening and people know it, you shouldn't try and run away too much from it. no matter how better is your product or how much more flexible you can be. It might be, as all the other participants explained, it's everything needs to be taken per country or per whatever jurisdiction you're looking for your operation. And attracting is one like a small part of the journey. To onboard a user, might sound hard, but it's not that hard. You can always get users from somewhere. It's more important to keep them there. And like, why would they play on your side and not on your competitor's side? That's a question that usually operators needs to ask themselves. And see, having instance right now can be one of the reasons. So these guys, they have more cross-sale options. They offer retention in a way that makes users try other products rather than just incentivize them to play what they play. If you're a heavy casino player, then here's your casino promotion, sports, here's your sports. It needs to have diversity at first. And I mean, if you decide to have such kind of products, that's why I try to explain. If you just get the lottery and put it somewhere else and you don't do nothing about it, most likely nothing will come out of it. If you don't have the audience, of course. That's why you need to try different and more, not standard things to make it work. And if it doesn't, then I guess the audience just not ready for that. If it works, then you should push it more, I guess. That's my take.
Thanks, Mary. Milda, the question is to you that, do you have some experience in terms of game conversion? Earlier it was a kind of a physical scratch card. You converted that to digital. What challenges you face? And then how do you improvise on them?
Actually, we have made many conversions from physical to digital. And the main idea of conversion of physical to digital is cross-marketing and the player being able to recognize their favorite games in store and online. And actually, we all know the endless possibilities of the internet. Therefore, the main challenge we faced was making digital games as attractive as possible by making it recognizable for the user at the same time. And in addition, I'd like to mention that our latest experience regarding conversion from digital to physical, it means vice versa, from digital to physical. I mean that firstly we made a digital game and only then moved to retail. Well, that was a challenge because in this case we already had an amazing interactive online product, which now we had to turn into physical and make it attractive without bonus room, without animation, and etc. due to the limits of physical games.
So, no, that's a very, very interesting subject. On one end, when you have digital, of course, the cost of production of digital games versus cost of production of physical games, they are very, very different. In digital games, you have a very deep player insight, what they are looking for, and that can definitely easily influence. But yes, you are very right that some of the animations, some of the real feeling of playing an electronic instant win game cannot be transferred way back into physical. Whereas a physical game can easily be converted back into digital. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
If I may as well, on the challenges, I think, certainly from a lottery basis, a lot of our land-based lottery scratch cards are based on a fixed run of scratch cards. And as such, depending on when jackpots are won or not won, cards may need to come in or out of distribution, etc. So the underlying payout mechanics in an offline world are often very different to what we would then support online. Online, you'll find that your instants follow far more of a casino model based on that infinitesimal play, as it were. And so the chance of winning a jackpot will remain the same chance of winning a jackpot, regardless of how many times it has won. These little differences that maybe we don't see at an outside, they're part of the challenges that we have when we talk to an operator about, direct conversion, is that sometimes a lot of things happen underneath the hood that we just don't really realize. And consequently, I guess that's where the challenges come from. Thank you.
Well, very well stated. Now, we come to the next topic, which is player acquisition and retention. Can a game be used for player retention? And so, Ashley, the question to you is, of course, you had been stating that it's much easier to acquire a player, or rather lower cost, in iLottery than a sportsbook or casino, right? Now, would instant win game fit there to attract a player in terms of acquiring it? What are your views?
Yeah, sure. So I think the genesis of my argument there is that certainly in a lot of countries, over 50% of the eligible population will be playing lottery. So the core of my argument is that lottery and lottery instants and scratch cards are very familiar to a lot of players. This has a knock-on effect that if you're going to acquire or engage a player and bring them into an online space, generally speaking, acquiring those players is a lot cheaper as a lottery stroke instance player. And to put that into some kind of perspective, if I'm going to pay-per-click to affiliates, etc., who are offering space, if I'm a casino player, I'm by and large competing with other casino sites to acquire players through whatsmybiggestbonus.com, etc., etc. These are relatively expensive channels to try and acquire players. Whereas from a lottery perspective, you can go far, far wider. It's very familiar. It's less of a gambling purchase. So your pay-per-click is a lot less. If I'm going to go as a UK market to try and acquire on Google and pay for some AdWords, I'm probably at £200, £250 a player in effect. If I'm looking at online casino, let's make that online scratch card or online lottery, and I'm less than 50. It's a lot cheaper to bring players in that way. However, as in the question, acquiring them is one thing. Actually, where the instants fit in that wider ecosystem. I think Mario made a very good point about the value of a player in a sportsbook. And it might be okay acquiring them quickly, but the trick then is actually how do we bring that into an ecosystem that includes a sportsbook? And my suggestion there very much is that the instants play a very easy role in that people are familiar with instants and you can move them over into sportsbook, but they also provide this bridge. We talked earlier about very simple games being easy to understand, but more complex collection games would be a lot more like a casino game. We can play the Latvian basketball, etc., which leads us into more of a sportsbook bet. So the instants allow us to kind of cross these boundaries somewhere, and hence helps in sportsbook and casino acquisition, even if it's just coming from a lottery. I think the final point I'd want to make on that as well is that in an online space, converting players can also be very expensive. Actually, to encourage a player to play in a slot game, potentially you've got to give them some cash to make that happen. And in a slot game with a 97% RTP, that cash has a very good chance of being turned into cash. And players will exit a casino quite often with good chunks. By using the instants and the scratch cards with a far lower RTP, we tend to protect our operators a lot more, which is both good for the operators, but it's also good for the players because actually we can reach a wider player base for these things. And fundamentally, am I interested in 2 goes to win 100,000 jackpot, or am I interested in 5 free spins on Starburst? They've probably got the same pull to a player. and that's why I'm a big fan of Instants in that kind of acquisition trail. I know that was a bit quite a lot, but hopefully that makes sense to everybody.
Perfect. So it's a two-way traffic, or rather grid traffic. I mean, you know, you can use one game to attract the other, retain players from the other genre. Very good. Georgie, my question to you is that you had been advising so many startup companies, so you know their budgets are usually low, and in terms of bonus, acquisition, retention, you know. So, can you use electronic instant win games to fill in the gaps, you know, instead of giving really hard cash?
Yeah, definitely. And in some occasions, actually, the budgets are quite impressive, but it's just a matter of how you spend this money. If you just go and give affiliates a bundle of cash, it's definitely not working. And then additionally, having to share the revenue with them. Don't get me wrong, no one can operate these days without affiliates, but the key point here is again in the word diversity. So what I'm usually advising is try different channels and definitely try on instant games. Once again, they're simple, they're quick, they're affordable from an operator's perspective, and it's a very short path to inviting a customer. Use them to invite a customer to your house, and then once he's there, just show him the rest of your house, all products, all the games. And actually, to be honest, I believe instant games are right now at the top of the list of most appropriate and affordable instruments to get a proper acquisition.
Perfect. Now I think we have time to take some of the questions from the attendees. So one of the questions that has been posed is, you know, are the young players attracted to low ticket prices or high ticket prices? I'll pose this question to Ashley.
Yeah. Really, how do we keep those players on the game? Sorry, I've was a bit quiet there. Sorry, Sergey, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
You know, attracting the younger players. So do you think the ticket price has to be low, or ticket price can be medium or high, you know, compared to other players? Yeah.
No, it's very interesting. I think the natural expectation is that for younger players with, generally speaking, a smaller income, that actually the smaller ticket prices would work. But I think what we'll find is that actually the younger generations are actually treating a far higher disposable. You know, they're certainly in a lot of Western Europe worrying less about saving for the future. And far more interested in consumer products and disposable purchases, etc. And as such, that plus €1 plus cards are very positive. So we kind of see a bit of a almost a reverse bump in that the younger generations will bet higher, €2+. This will come down to 150 as we start to go through the 30s. And then as we get back up to the later generations that maybe have a bit more income, it goes back up again. And I'm sure there's a lot of regional variation within that, but there is a bit of an oxymoron that the very youngest should be betting at the lowest levels, but it's not quite what we're seeing.
Perfect. One more question that I will pose to Milda is that you produce a lot of slot games as well as instant win games, and many times these games are converging. They're many times they feel similar, right? But jackpot is a major difference. So what is the role of jackpot, which actually differentiates instant win game more than the slot game?
Actually, it's a good question. because it depends on the operator, and because operator is free to set the jackpots, and it is easiest to recalculate and to set. It's because of the game mechanics and how the game is built for instant games. So it is much easier than for slots.
Okay, wonderful. The next question I will pose to Mario is again from one of the attendees. It's about cloud gaming platform. So, whether all these e-instance or other games we are talking about, they should be, cloud-based platforms. What are your views? Because you do a lot of game aggregation also. So, over to you, Mario. Mario, you're muted, I think.
Yeah. I really like, what do we call cloud games again? Cloud gaming?
Yeah, it's these. I mean, the platforms being on the cloud.
Where else could it be? Oh, the physical server. All right.
Yeah.
These are stuff that only me, you, or whoever in the business can relate to. When you overthink stuff, when you make your site or when you make your products, you should think as the user, right? Like, the user doesn't know Curacao or Malta, doesn't know where your site is hosted, doesn't know what programming language you've used to make your games, doesn't care. Is it working? Am I winning? I don't care. It could be hosted on a hard drive in your office. No one knows that, right? Like, so I don't really get the question.
Okay, but
infrastructure is not
the way to go is, make these things available on the cloud, right? That's the way to go, right? Okay.
Maybe for me, I'm confused because we've never had anything else but cloud.
Okay, all right.
Never ever. So I really don't know anything else.
Yeah, because traditionally, most of the national lotteries had been operating, on premises, physically. So maybe that's the question, right? Okay. Now, thanks about that. So next question is to Georgie. These the games that you play on a mobile phone. You get notifications, you get distractions like some WhatsApp messages or phone call, various things, right? So because if there is a very engaging game, it distracts. So how do you make sure that these games are very quickly played, or they don't interfere with normal other activities?
Well, actually, the only recipe to this is having a good and operationally working fine relationship with the platform provider and the game provider, respectively. And what I'm always advising is to do a lot of pre-testing, because operators can be in really tough situation when, for example, a loyal player, a VIP player, is getting some kind of bugs while playing on high stakes or these kind of distractions. So it's mostly a matter of development here, which plays quite an important role nowadays.
Perfect. Of course, there is one question, which talks about what is more efficient communication strategy to implement in point of sale communication on high winners. So I would like to answer that myself, stating that, of course, this discussion is more about, electronic instance, more onto the digital side of it. But then it's omni-channel world today, right? People can be, purchasing on, on a physical retail point. The next time they could be purchasing tickets on online, absolutely. So the communication strategy again has to be omni-channel, right? So what exactly you are putting on the digital marketing side of it, what you are actually putting onto the point of sale visibility, definitely there has to be some synergy, that you should always keep, because the communication, the message has to be the same. If you say for a moment, I talk about a game promotion, the core message that you use for branding purpose, for the purpose of popularizing your game should be similar, if not exactly the same, on physical channel as well as digital channel. So now over to the next question. Is to Milda that attracting the young players. Can you describe some sports which are like adventure sports that the games can be build on that theme? Would players be more attracted towards that? Do you have any such experience?
We have some developed games related to the sports, and yes, they are very, very popular. And as I mentioned at the beginning of our webinar, it is very close related to the jurisdiction and specific market. But for sure, we have the games that are very, very sports, and they are instant as well at the same time.
Okay, so say for a moment, can you create some mountaineering themed or rock climbing themed?
Sure, obviously, yes.
That's good. That's good. Now, one last question to you, Ashley, is can instant win games be? Though you answered this, customized based on country, region, and but at the same time, the question could be probably drilling down a little more in terms of if it is if it is the same game, can that same game have little kind of templated difference brought country by country or region by region?
Yeah, sure. I think it plays into Milda's kind of response there, really around the sports. Is that fundamentally Scratch instant win content isn't. It's not a video game, and it's not a slot game. They are relatively easy to produce, relatively easy to customize, etc. And so creating variety, in a technical sense, really isn't that difficult. And a lot of it comes through exactly what you mentioned there, templating. We can use exactly the same game mechanics, exactly the same payouts, but for a variety of themes. Or a variety of stake levels. Where it gets difficult is if you make that too much variety within the same customer base, and as such, you then start to complicate the customer's view on what it is you're offering. But it's certainly across regions, it's a fantastic opportunity. Let me give you a good example, which means that we mentioned earlier about jackpots and their importance, etc. Now, your jackpot is very much in line with your stake level. So if I'm offering a €1 game and a 10,000 jackpot, I don't really want to be offering the same customer a €2 game with only a €5,000 jackpot. Regardless of what the game mechanic is or how beautiful it is, etc., a player has a natural understanding that I'm going to pay a little bit more with a chance of a bigger jackpot. The underlying maths, and for a lot of people on the call, they'll be saying, well, you could do this. It just depends how you construct the payouts. They're perfectly right, but your average customer sees two things. How much does it cost me and how much can I win? So that's a good idea, good point there where we template, and it's templating between having a silver card at a €1 price point, a gold card at a €5 price point, and a diamonds and very rich leather card at a €20 price point. Understandably, a lot of that could be very similar, just templated along the way. Customers, it's to their advantage. They're seeing the variety, they're getting the slightly different things. On operators' perspective, it means they're getting a diversity in their portfolio. And from our perspective, I'm also actually not becoming very cost inhibitive to actually give that bit of variety onto the customer. Does that answer the question, Judith? Yeah?
Yeah, but I'm sure it answered a lot rather. So yeah, perfect. So with that, we come to an end of this webinar. So I would like to really thank To The Expo for arranging this webinar and the sponsors, Skill Rock, Ultra Play, Crazy Brilliance, Super Lotto, and of course Georgie, who's advising the whole startup and other world. So we look forward to seeing you very soon in February. Definitely, Through the Expo will be publishing their next event shortly. And thank you everybody for being with us today. Thank you. Bye bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thanks. Okay, Sujit, speak to you tomorrow.